At 83 years old, Phil Esposito has finally decided to address the rumors that branded him a cheater in his personal life and on the ice. The hockey legend recently opened up about his past struggles with infidelity and the wild stories from his tell-all autobiography. But here's what the critics never understood. This man didn't just break records. He broke barriers, revolutionized hockey strategy, became a national hero, and built an NHL empire from nothing. So how did a kid who was too fat and too slow become one of hockey's greatest legends? Let's dive into the real story of Phil Esposito. Born on February 20th, 1942, in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Phil Esposito's path to greatness was anything but guaranteed. He grew up playing outdoor hockey with his younger brother Tony, who would later become a Hall of Fame goaltender. But Phil was different from other future superstars. He was overweight and slow on his skates, so slow that he got cut from his bantam and midget teams. Most kids would have quit right there. Not Phil Esposito. Those early rejections lit a fire inside him that would burn for decades. When coach Rudy Palace challenged him to slim down to 200 pounds to make the St. Catharines Teepees, Phil did exactly that through pure determination and hard work. The payoff was incredible. In his lone season with the Sarnia Legionnaires in 1960-61, he exploded for 47 goals and 61 assists. That's 108 points in just 32 games. Suddenly, everyone was paying attention to the kid they once called too slow. The Chicago Blackhawks signed him as a teenager. After a few years in the minors, Phil made his NHL debut midway through the 1963-64 season. But here's what most people don't know about his early career. He wasn't the goal-scoring machine we remember. He was a playmaker for the legendary Bobby Hull. Phil centered Hull's line and developed into one of the league's top assist men. Over 3 seasons, he averaged nearly 24 goals, but his main job was setting up Hull, who became the first player to score more than 50 goals in a season, with 54 in 1965-66. Phil was learning the game at the highest level, studying how to create chances and position himself in the offensive zone. Everything changed on May 15, 1967. That's when Chicago made one of the worst trades in hockey history. He sent Phil Esposito, Ken Hodge, and Fred Stanfield to the Boston Bruins. The Bruins had missed the playoffs for 9 straight seasons. They were a laughingstock. But this trade changed everything. Boston now had 2 game changers, Phil Esposito and a young defenseman named Bobby Orr. Together, they transformed the Bruins into a powerhouse that would win 2 Stanley Cups in 1970 and 1972. Phil was no longer playing second fiddle to Bobby Hull. He was free to unleash his full scoring potential, and unleash it he did. In his first season with Boston, Phil scored 35 goals and 49 assists for 84 points. That was just the beginning. The 1968-69 season is when Phil made hockey history. He became the first player ever to reach 100 points in a single season. Not only did he reach it, he smashed it with 126 points on 49 goals and 77 assists. The previous record was 97 points held by Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita. Phil didn't just break it, he obliterated it. He won his first Art Ross Trophy for leading the league in points and his first Hart Memorial Trophy as the most valuable player. But that was nothing compared to what came next. The 1970-71 season stands as the greatest individual scoring performance in hockey history up to that point. Phil scored 76 goals, breaking the single-season record. He also set a new points record with 152. These weren't small improvements. They were massive leaps that seemed impossible. Here's the crazy part. That same season, Phil's teammate Bobby Orr scored 139 points, Johnny Butik had 116, and Ken Hodge notched 105. The top 4 scorers in the entire NHL all played for the same team. That had never happened before, and it's never happened since. From 1968 to 1975, Phil dominated like no one had before. He won 5 Art Ross trophies and led the league in goals for 6 straight seasons. He made the NHL's first All-Star team 6 consecutive years and won 2 Hart trophies. This wasn't just a hot streak. This was sustained excellence at the highest level. But critics had a problem with Phil's style. They called him a garbage collector. A Chicago reporter claimed his goals were just rebounds and leftovers from other players' shots. The criticism stung, but Phil knew better. His supporters understood the truth. It took guts to stand in the dirty areas around the net and battle for every goal. Phil's approach was simple but brilliant. He planted himself in the slot, took the beating from defensemen, and fired pucks at the net. Lots of pucks. In that record-breaking 1970-71 season, he took 550 shots on goal. That's still an NHL record today. His shooting percentage was only 13.8%. much lower than other 70-goal scorers. Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Brett Hull all shot over 17% in their 70-goal seasons. Phil's genius wasn't efficiency, it was volume and positioning. By relentlessly firing from high-danger areas, he created chaos and scoring chances like no one before him. Whether through direct goals or rebounds, he was always a threat. Boston fans loved it so much they created a bumper sticker that read, "Jesus saves, Espo scores on the rebound." But the critics called garbage goals, Phil called strategic brilliance. And he was right. Today, every hockey team uses his net front strategy. From youth leagues to the Stanley Cup final, players try to do exactly what Phil perfected decades ago. Phil's impact went far beyond the NHL. In 1972, he became the face of Canadian hockey during the Summit Series against the Soviet Union. This wasn't just a hockey tournament. It was a battle for national pride between Canada and the USSR. After 4 games on home ice, things looked terrible. Team Canada had 1 win, 1 tie, and 2 losses. Canadian fans were furious. After a 5-3 loss in Vancouver, they actually booed their own team off the ice. Phil was devastated. What happened next became the stuff of legend. Phil skated back onto the ice for an impromptu interview. He was visibly upset and spoke directly to the nation. "Every one of us guys, 35 guys that came out and played for Team Canada, we did it because we love our country and not for any other reason. Canada is still our home, and that's the only reason we come. And I don't think it's fair that we should be booed." That speech was more than frustration. It was leadership. Phil transformed the narrative from a failing team to a group of patriots giving everything for their country. The speech fired up his teammates and created an us-against-the-world mentality. Team Canada went to Moscow and won 3 of the 4 remaining games to clinch the series. Phil's performance earned him the 1972 Lou Marsh Trophy as Canada's outstanding male athlete. He was also made an Officer of the Order of Canada. He wasn't just a hockey player anymore. He was a national hero. On November 7, 1975, Phil's Boston era ended with a trade to the New York Rangers. He called it the only bad thing that ever happened to me in hockey. But he kept producing. The Rangers made him captain, and he became their leading scorer in each of his 4 full seasons, averaging 37 goals per year. At age 37, Phil led the Rangers to the 1979 Stanley Cup final and finished 3rd in playoff scoring. He retired in January 1981 with 717 goals and 1,390 points. At the time, only Gordie Howe had more goals and points in NHL history. Phil's post-playing career was just as impactful. He became the Rangers general manager in 1986 and earned the nickname Trader Phil for making 43 trades in 3 years. He was impatient with progress and even coached the team briefly before being fired after the 1989 playoffs. But Phil's greatest post-playing achievement is bringing hockey to Florida. After leaving the Rangers, he began what he called a dogged pursuit to land an NHL expansion franchise in Tampa Bay. His hockey pedigree and passion convinced the league to award Tampa Bay a team on December 6, 1990. Phil became the Lightning's first president and general manager. Though early financial struggles led to his firing in 1998, his vision paid off. The Lightning have won 3 Stanley Cups and become one of the NHL's model franchises. In 2011, Tampa Bay unveiled a bronze statue of Phil outside their arena. It shows him in a business suit holding a hockey stick and his 2 Stanley Cup rings. Phil considers building the Lightning more important than his playing career, and he's still involved today as the team's radio color commentator, a role he's held for years. Now let's address those rumors that have followed Phil throughout his life. In his autobiography, Thunder and Lightning, Phil was brutally honest about his personal struggles. He admitted to infidelity during his marriage and discussed the heavy drinking and drug culture that existed in hockey during his era. These admissions led some to question his character. But Phil's openness shows something important. He's willing to own his mistakes and be honest with fans. His flaws don't erase his greatness. They make him human. Phil Esposito revolutionized hockey strategy with his net front presence. He became a national hero through his Summit Series leadership. He built a thriving NHL market in Tampa Bay from scratch. His single-season shot record of 550 may never be broken. At 83, Phil Esposito has finally broken his silence on the rumors that have followed him. But the real story isn't about his mistakes. It's about a man who overcame early rejection, changed how hockey is played, inspired a nation, and built a legacy that extends far beyond the ice.